Good morning. We often look outward toward the future we want, the success we chase, the life we hope to build. We imagine what could be, what should be, and what we deserve. But here's a question. What if the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is you? Change. It's a heavy word. We love the idea of it, but we often place it on others, on systems, on circumstances, on timing. We say, if only they would change, or when things calm down, I'll start. We wait for the outside to shift, forgetting that the only thing we ever truly control is what's inside. Imagine a person standing at the edge of a forest, wanting a clear path to appear, but the forest won't change. It won't part like the Red Sea. You have to step forward. Cut your path. The future doesn't arrive, it's created, and it starts with you. You can't expect the world to treat you better than you treat yourself. You can't expect better results without better habits. And you can't build a different future without first becoming the kind of person who belongs in it. You want more discipline? Start with one promise to yourself today and keep it. You want more confidence? Earn it by doing the thing you've been avoiding. You want people to trust you? Be trustworthy. Don't wait for someone else to set the tone. Don't hope the future magically unfolds. Decide who you need to be and become that person now. Change yourself first, not because you're not enough, but because your future is waiting and it's watching who you are becoming today. The truth is, transformation isn't a moment, it's a direction. One step, one action, one choice at a time. Not perfect, just intentional. Start inside, and the world outside will begin to reflect that change. Slowly at first, then all at once. Don't chase the future. Build it by building you. Change starts within. It's a truth that's simple to say, but often difficult to embrace. We live in a world where it's easier to point outward at the economy, our upbringing, our environment, or the people around us and place the responsibility for our circumstances in someone else's hands. You feel safer that way. It removes the burden from our shoulders. But the moment we accept that the power to change lies within us, everything begins to shift. What does it actually mean to say that change starts within? It means that no matter how complex the situation, the most effective and sustainable transformation always begins with a personal decision. Not a grand declaration, not a big moment of clarity, but a quiet internal commitment. It starts with a decision to look in the mirror and say, if I want something to be different, I need to be different first. And this is where most people hesitate, not because they're weak, but because changing ourselves means taking responsibility for what we can control instead of blaming what we can't. When you focus on changing yourself, you're not denying that external factors exist. You're simply refusing to give them full power over your future. Think about someone stuck in a toxic workplace. They can complain endlessly, waiting for their boss to become more empathetic or their team to communicate better. But none of those things may happen. However, if that person begins to change how they approach problems, how they respond to conflict, how they manage their energy, suddenly their experience within that environment can start to shift. And eventually that internal shift can lead them to new choices, even a new path altogether. It's easy to believe that our circumstances create our mindset, but the reverse is often true. Our mindset shapes how we see our circumstances. When we take ownership of our behavior, attitude, and choices, we begin to unlock new perspectives. We start to notice opportunities we were once blind to. We begin to respond to adversity with resilience rather than reactivity. This doesn't make life easier, but it makes us stronger. There's a powerful idea in psychology called locus of control. People with an internal locus believe they have the ability to influence their lives through their actions. Those with an external locus believe their lives are shaped mostly by outside forces. The former tend to be more successful, more fulfilled, and more capable of growth. Why? Because they're not waiting for someone else to rescue them or for luck to land in their lap. They act, they adapt, they evolve. When we stop blaming and start building ourselves, we regain agency. We go from being passive observers of life to active participants. Even if we can't control everything, we can always control something, our effort, our focus, our willingness to grow. And when we shift from focusing on changing the world to first changing how we operate within it, we become more effective agents of change in every space we enter. It's not easy. Internal change is often the hardest kind. It requires humility, discipline, and the courage to face our own patterns. But this is also why it's so powerful. Because once you begin to change from within, no one can take that progress from you. It becomes a part of who you are. And from that solid foundation, everything else, your relationships, your work, your future, can begin to transform. You control your response. That might seem like a small truth in a chaotic world, but it's one of the most powerful ideas you can carry with you. Life is unpredictable. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. Circumstances will arise that you never asked for or expected. But in all of that, there's one thing that no one can take from you: how you choose to respond. We often underestimate this truth because we're conditioned to believe that our emotions, reactions, and decisions are dictated by what happens around us. Someone cuts us off in traffic and we get angry. We receive bad news and we shut down. A person lets us down and we lash out or withdraw. These reactions feel automatic, even justified. But the moment we accept that those responses are still our choice, we begin to reclaim a part of our power that most people never use. Every event in your life brings with it a small space, a moment between stimulus and response. In that space lies the freedom to choose. Do you react in anger, or do you pause and reflect? Do you let fear decide, or do you move forward with courage? Do you stay stuck in a pattern, or do you break it? Most people don't recognize that space. They move from impulse to reaction without thought, letting the world write their script. But when you begin to notice that space, when you begin to pause and choose intentionally, everything changes. Let's say you're in a conversation and someone criticizes your work. It's easy to get defensive, to take it personally, and to shut down or strike back. But what if instead you chose to breathe, to listen without attachment, and to ask yourself whether there's something valuable in what was said? That single decision shifts the energy in the room, and more importantly, it shifts the energy in you. You move from being a product of the moment to being a leader within it. And that kind of leadership, self-leadership, is the foundation for any lasting change. We don't always get to control what happens to us, but we always get to control what we do next. That's not just a motivational phrase, it's a practical mindset. Think of someone who's faced with failure. They can choose to wallow in self-doubt or choose to extract the lesson, make adjustments, and try again. That choice makes all the difference. The first response keeps them trapped in the story of defeat. The second builds the story of resilience. The more we practice choosing our responses, the more capable we become of handling the complexities of life. We begin to act from intention, not just reaction. We stop being tossed around by every setback, every mood swing, every piece of bad news. We become anchored. That doesn't mean we stop feeling things. We still experience sadness, anger, disappointment, but we don't let those emotions drive the car. We learn to sit with them, understand them, and then decide what to do next. Owning your response is also deeply connected to maturity. It's easy to blame others for how we feel or what we do. It takes real strength to say, this is mine to carry, and I choose how I show up. That kind of ownership doesn't just build character, it builds credibility. People begin to trust you, not because you're always right, but because you're steady, because you're thoughtful, because you show up with awareness, even when things are hard. In a world where so many people are reacting without thinking, the ability to respond with clarity, composure, and purpose becomes a rare and valuable strength. It's the difference between being at the mercy of life and mastering how you move through it. And when you begin to live from that place, your relationships change, your work improves, and your future begins to align not by accident, but by choice. Your habits shape your future. This isn't just a motivational idea. It's a practical, inescapable truth. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are casting votes for the kind of person you are becoming. And those votes come in the form of habits, the things you do repeatedly, the small decisions you make without thinking, the routines you follow. The future doesn't suddenly arrive one day like a surprise gift. It's quietly built, action by action, choice by choice. Most people dream big. They want success, happiness, fulfillment, impact. But dreaming isn't doing. Wanting something is easy. Building it is what matters. And that building doesn't begin with massive leaps. It begins with consistent, deliberate habits, practice over time. A person doesn't wake up one day as a healthy, confident, productive version of themselves. That version is the result of hundreds, maybe thousands of small decisions. Choosing the salad over the fries, showing up to the gym even when motivation is low, reading a chapter instead of scrolling endlessly, finishing tasks instead of procrastinating. These things might seem small on their own, but together they define your trajectory. Think of habits as the foundation of your identity. You can tell yourselves that you're disciplined, but if your daily behavior doesn't reflect it, the words are empty. You can hope for a brighter future, but if your habits contradict your hopes, the future you want will never arrive. That's why habits are more than routines. They are identity statements. They say, this is who I am becoming, and over time, they either work for you or against you. But the most powerful thing about habits is that they don't require perfection. They require consistency. You don't need to read a book a day to become wise. You just need to read a few pages every day. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just need to make one decision each day that aligns with the person you want to be. These incremental actions compound, they grow in value, and while the results may not be visible right away, they're happening beneath the surface, setting you up for long-term transformation. On the flip side, the same truth applies in reverse. Small negative habits can quietly sabotage the future you're trying to build. Skipping workouts occasionally may not seem like a big deal until it becomes a pattern. Putting off important tasks today may feel like harmless procrastination until it becomes your normal. These choices rarely feel like turning points in the moment, but over time they define the story of your life. And that story is always being written by what you do daily, not what you promise to do someday. Your brain is wired for habits because they conserve energy. Once something becomes familiar, your brain automates it. That means it's just as easy to get stuck in unhealthy routines as it is to develop powerful ones. The key is awareness. Recognizing which habits are serving you and which ones are stealing from your future. And that awareness allows you to intentionally design the life you want instead of drifting into one you don't. You don't need a complete personality makeover to change your life. You just need to understand this. Every future you dream of is built on the habits you live by. So if you want a future that looks different, start by building habits that align with it. Be deliberate, be patient, be consistent. Because your habits are the blueprint, the groundwork, the architecture of everything you are becoming. They don't just predict your future, they create it. Stop waiting, start becoming. It's one of the most common traps we fall into. Waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal circumstances, or the right sign before we take action. We tell ourselves, I'll start when I have more time, or I'll change when things settle down, or I need to be ready first. But the truth is, that perfect moment rarely comes. Life is messy, unpredictable, and often inconvenient. Waiting for conditions to be just right is like waiting for a ship to come in without ever leaving the dock. This mindset of waiting puts your life on hold. It places your future in the hands of external factors you can't control. It creates a false belief that transformation requires a grand catalyst, a sweeping event, or a dramatic shift. But real change doesn't happen in big leaps. It happens in small, consistent steps taken right now. It begins the moment you decide to stop waiting and start becoming who you want to be. The challenge with waiting is that it can feel like progress. When you plan, research, or prepare endlessly, you feel productive, but you're often just delaying. Preparation is important, but it's not a substitute for action. Waiting for motivation or perfect clarity is like waiting for the sun to shine through thick clouds without deciding to walk anyway. The future you want doesn't show up on its own. You have to move toward it, even when the way isn't perfectly clear. Becoming someone new means embracing imperfection and uncertainty. It means showing up every day with the willingness to learn, fail, and try again. It means taking risks that might feel uncomfortable. The truth is, growth rarely happens inside your comfort zone. When you stop waiting, you accept that discomfort is part of the process. You move from hesitation to momentum. And momentum, even if slow, builds over time into unstoppable progress. Another trap of waiting is the myth of readiness. We convince ourselves that we need more knowledge, more skills, more confidence before we start. But often readiness comes through doing, not before it. You learn by stepping into the arena, by making mistakes, by adapting as you go. The person you need to be to succeed is forged in the very act of trying. Waiting for readiness is waiting for a version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. This principle applies everywhere in relationships, careers, health, and personal growth. Waiting for the right person to come along without improving how you show up doesn't build lasting connections. Waiting for the right job to appear without developing skills or networking won't change your career. Waiting for the right time to get healthy without taking any steps toward better habits keeps you stuck. In every area of life, waiting puts you on pause when what you really need is to press play. Start becoming means taking ownership of your journey right now. It means deciding who you want to be and choosing one small step toward that vision today. It might be as simple as making a phone call, reading a book, practicing a skill, or changing one habit. These small acts done consistently add up. They build confidence, momentum, and clarity. You start to see what's possible because you're no longer standing still. When you stop waiting and start becoming, you reclaim your power. You stop being a passive observer of your own life and become an active creator. The future you want is not some distant destination. It's something you shape with every decision, every action, every moment. You don't need permission or perfect conditions. You just need to start. The key is to recognize that becoming is a process, not a moment. It's a journey of small, imperfect steps taken with intention and courage. And as you take those steps, you'll find that your future begins to unfold in ways you never imagined because you stopped waiting and started becoming the person you were meant to be. Lead by example. It's one of the most powerful ways to influence change, not by telling people what to do, but by showing them through your own actions. When you embody the values, behaviors, and mindset you want to see in others, you create a magnetic force that draws people in. Leadership isn't about authority or position. It's about authenticity and consistency. People follow those who walk their talk, who live their principles, even when it's hard or inconvenient. Leading by example begins with understanding that your behavior speaks louder than your words. You can say, "Trust me," 1,000 times, but if your actions contradict those words, trust will never be built. You can demand respect, but if you don't show respect first, it will never be given. People pay attention not just to what you say, but to what you do when no one is watching. That's where true leadership lives. When you commit to leading by example, you hold yourself accountable to the highest standards, not to impress others, but because it reflects who you truly are. This kind of leadership creates a ripple effect. When you consistently demonstrate integrity, kindness, and discipline, those around you feel inspired to rise to that level. It sets a cultural tone that invites others to grow alongside you. For example, in a team setting, a leader who shows up on time, meets commitments, and communicates openly encourages others to do the same, not because of fear or obligation, but because they want to match that standard. Leading by example builds trust. And trust is the foundation of any successful relationship, whether professional or personal. Leading by example also means embracing vulnerability and admitting mistakes. Nobody expects perfection, but everyone respects honesty. When you openly acknowledge your own struggles or failures and show how you learn and improve from them, you create a safe space for others to do the same. This kind of leadership breaks down walls, fosters connection, and encourages continuous growth. It shows that leadership isn't about pretending to have all the answers, but about courageously navigating the journey alongside others. Another important aspect is consistency. One inspiring action isn't enough. Leading by example requires showing up day after day, especially when it's challenging. The true test of leadership is not when things are easy or convenient, but when the pressure is high and shortcuts are tempting. Staying true to your values and commitments during those moments demonstrates character and builds long-term credibility. People notice and remember who stood firm when it mattered most. Leading by example also empowers you to influence change beyond your immediate circle. When you live with authenticity and integrity, you become a beacon in your community, workplace, or family. Others see what's possible because of your example. They're encouraged to reflect on their own choices and consider how they can step up. The impact of leading by example multiplies, creating a culture of responsibility and growth. Ultimately, leading by example means becoming the kind of person who inspires through action rather than words. It's about being the first to set the tone, to take responsibility, and to embody the change you wish to see. When you do this, you create a foundation of trust and respect that others naturally want to follow. It's not about control or power. It's about influence grounded in authenticity. When you commit to leading by example, you don't just change yourself, you change the world around you. The future you want starts with the actions you take today. By showing up with integrity, courage, and consistency, you pave the way for a better tomorrow, not just for yourself, but for everyone whose lives you touch.